Hi, everyone. My name is Nada Ahmed, and I'm the host of the Braving Innovation podcast. And today, my voice is a little cracky a little bit because we all have Corona in the house, but we're here anyways. Um, and today, I'm really excited to bring to you Anita Krohn Traaseth, who is a Norwegian business executive. There's a siren in the background.
That's
A
okay.
chairman of several executive boards, and a former CEO of Innovation Norway, which is Norwegian government's most important instrument for innovation and development of Norwegian enterprises and industries, and really about spurring innovation in Norway. And under her leadership, um, they delivered 24% more services to Norwegian entrepreneurs and industries and reduced operating cost by 6%, and were also awarded the most attractive employer of the year by students 3 years in a row. So she's had a fabulous career as an executive also in the private sector, the first female managing director of Hewlett Packard in Norway in 2012, and is currently, as I mentioned, on a lot of boards and very active within the community, Norwegian industry and business in general. So welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Nada.
And I thought we could start off with, given that you have all your career has been within innovation, and one of your main, um, or I would say the most, no, I wouldn't say recent, but 2, 3 years ago, one of the big works that you were working on was around transformation at Innovation Norway. And to give our audiences some context, Norway has primarily been driven by the oil and gas industry. A lot of innovation has been driven by that industry for the past 2 or 3 decades. And around the time you took over Innovation Norway's leadership, this was around 2014, I think we were coming to terms with the realization that we have to diversify our industry, our business. And so that was sort of the context for this transformation, is how do we spur the business, the industry, to move towards more sustainable solutions, towards the green shift, and how Norway can play an important part in this transformation. So I thought maybe we could hear from you a little bit about your experience from driving that transformation, and what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Hmm. Well, thank you for inviting me, Nada, and thank you for bringing up important topics on innovation and transformation. So when I started working as a trainee for IBM, that was 25 years ago, I came into an industry that already was in transformation. Uh, Everything that I've learned about the ICT industry, the big bonuses, the big checks, all the great numbers. I remember that you were lucky if you were able to buy anything from IBM. We could kind of choose our customers, So I was entering my working life actually already when an industry was in change. So my background for 25 years has been change and transformation. I don't know what normal is. So many years ago, we had a name and we called it transformational leadership, because not everybody was transforming in the pace that we're doing right now. I mean, every leader is a transformational leader now. We don't ask questions about it. But 15, 20 years ago, we did. And it's right, like you said, the past 50 years, Norway has had an enormous growth based on the discovery of oil in the North Sea. And it was actually discovered a couple of years before I was born. I was born in 1971. So I don't really know what crisis is, because it's been a very positive growth curve ever since I grew up. But in 2014, that was actually the first year where Norway got the wake-up call. And when I took over Innovation Norway in September 2014, I think a month after or something, the oil prices were halved. And I remember so well the annual speech of the governor of the central bank, when he was kind of defining the situation that Norway was in February 2015, he said that Norway had to move from a pole position as a leader to a transformer. And that sentence from the governor of the central bank was very effective on me, because my mandate was to change and to make Innovation Norway the vehicle that the Norwegian industry needed in the future. And we were in the midst of the beginning of a huge transformation. So sustainability and the green sector, in 2014, not everybody was really so concerned about that as we are now. We take it for granted now. While in 2014, it was quite new, it was quite hyped. So we did a lot of organizational changes and also changes in our services, because we're financed by the tax money. We are here for a reason, and that reason is to be relevant when we support startups and when we also support transformation of existing industry. So the timing, I would say, was really, really interesting. Having a transformational mandate in a time where the Norwegian economy was really transforming. Yes, it's a challenge, but most of all, for those of us who are passionate about change and innovation, it's the best time ever, you know? You don't have to sell that this is important, because the changes is happening all around you. You have to act.
And so, so it was pretty apparent that we had to act, and you were the right leader, because change is what you've been doing. And I really resonate with what you're saying. The pace of change now has increased at an exponential rate. It's not like it was 2 decades ago. And any leader who comes on today has to have that mindset. But unfortunately, that's not the reality of most of the leaders that are on there. And I think you probably faced with those challenges too. So how did you work in taking on this role in a public company, public as in, owned by the state, Innovation Norway, to work with that mindset and have people adopt that shift that now we're going to have to work in a new way?
Yeah, so I think it starts with a personal decision, and also in a personal awareness of what kind of leadership do you believe in. And I think Professor Cotter, he makes a distinction. He says there's 2 ground pillars of leadership. One is administration, the other one is leadership. We need both, but we need different profiles regarding what we're trying to achieve. So if you want to produce systems, you want to produce control, you want to produce structure, administration profile is what you need. But if you want to produce transformation and mobility and change, you need leadership skills. And those are different. So I think, first of all, the owners need to understand what kind of situation the company is in, and then put the right profile in front, leading the transformation that is needed. And at Innovation Norway at this time, it was obviously leadership skills, because we needed to transform a lot, both working processes, our mandate, our position in the society, the trust that entrepreneurs would trust in Innovation Norway to be an important vehicle. There's been discussions around public services like Innovation Norway for many years. Somebody believes in it and some people don't believe in it. And I think it's important when you come in as a leader with a change mandate that you start with the fact accepting that everybody's not going to embrace it. There is a lot of people who don't see the need for change. They don't want to change. They still want to do it the way they do things. And if you start out as a leader trying to engage and you get disappointed because you don't get the feedback that, hey, change is fun, you should go back and reconsider your approach. Because only 10 to 20% really is eager and is interested in leadership and strategy and change. Most people aren't, Nada. Um,
Absolutely.
but you don't need everyone to start a change process. You need a critical mass, and this is really important. You need a critical mass of key people, key partnerships. You need an establishment from the board, a direction, but you don't need, there's a saying in Norway that alle skal med. Everybody needs to be part of it. I don't believe in it. In the beginning of a transformational project, if you have an ambition that everybody's going to be enthusiastic and part of it, you're not going to end up not doing good work. So you have to define a change project that's at the umbrella level. You need to have a perspective on the transformation. You need to explain to people what are the key drivers for the change, not go directly into strategy and leveraging milestones. People need to see the big picture. Why are we changing? Why is it needed? And that needs to be repeated by the management time after time until you get bored of it. Because when you reach the state where you think, well, now they must understand, or now I've said this enough, then it's starting to go into the organization. It takes time. So you both have to be patient. You have to learn your organization. I had over 600 one-to-one conversations with my people and customers. I opened up the management meetings for customers who complained about Innovation Norway, because we need to listen. We need to figure out what is it that people want us to change. So that was probably the first 1.5 years. I spent a lot of time traveling around the world and, meeting colleagues in, for example, Brazil. And for them having one-to-one with the CEOs, they were not used to that. And I said, well, this is an open conversation. You know more about this company than I do. And I asked them to give me an answer on 3 questions. And the first question was more, who are you? Because even though you have a role and a background, maybe you have skills I don't know about. I need to understand the complete competence set in an organization, not only the job that they do. And I found colleagues, with PhD degrees on topics that was probably not related to exactly what they were doing, but it was really relevant for the company. So that is also a way where you can understand the innovation capacity in the company. The second question I asked them was, what is it you mean that me as a new CEO should keep my hands off? What should I not touch? And based on that question, I was really looking for the soul of the company. What is really forming the culture here that I should not step on? And after 30 conversations, I got really important input, and it was input like from details like, don't take away the fruit, to don't take away our freedom, because at Innovation Norway they have flexible working schedule. Don't take away our freedom. And then the third question was, so sometimes when you go into the office, you don't feel like you want to go in there. You want to turn and you want to go back home. What are the obstacles at work that you want me to fix? And that was everything from, could you please fix our back office technology work, because we have so many systems. It's a lot of frustration about the systems. To, for example, could you please reorganize this department because it doesn't work? I got really great input from my colleagues. And I think that is key for any transformational leader, to actually spend the time needed to get to know the people working there. 80% of the answers you need, you will get from them.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And what I see you did there was kind of just, build that trust, because it's very easy for leaders to come in and just say, okay, I'm here to drive change. That's what's expected of me. So here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you have to, you did it in a very inclusive environment, and that's the best way to get people on board, because
Yeah,
then
you
it's
have
not
to
about.
turn it around, because I'm the one lacking history of the company.
Mhm.
Uh, they are the ones with insight.
Mm.
And if I can get access to that insight, I will get perspectives and also a fundament for making decisions that is more healthy than not spending time doing it. I think no matter what kind of company or department you are leading, if you are new as the leader, you have to spend time on the people. And if you don't like conversations with people, you should probably not be a leader with responsibilities for people.
Mhm.
You should do the numbers, or you should do something else, because leadership is a lot about people, spending time on people,
Mhm.
building relationships.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my challenges in the leadership roles I've had is expectations that I'm supposed to take on more project work. Whereas for me, my biggest project are the people, right? The
Yeah.
team. And if I'm taking on 2 or 3 other projects, delivering due diligence work or whatever other work that you're doing, then that's leaving me no time to actually see, exactly like you said, am I removing all the obstacles out of the way of my team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a key job for any leader. It's actually being the one who's taking away obstacles. You have to have the ability to facilitate the process that drives the direction. A company without a clear direction is management by accident, you know.
Hmm.
So you have to lead the work that's being done with having a clear direction, and also report back to your organization. We did that monthly in all employee meetings, saying, so this is what we want to do, this is what we've achieved so far, this is our lesson learned, and this is what we need to do moving forward, so that they can plug into all the uncertainty that a transformational project represents. It really represents a lot of chaos, double work, no sense of all. And then in that work, you need to communicate. You need to do it more than you think.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and sort of, in that uncertainty, actually a lot of people get lost in that uncertainty because
Yeah,
our organizations, our work
yeah,
culture is built around structure that gives us a lot of control, as you mentioned, right? And then, but I believe in it, when you're in a phase of transformation, you can flip that uncertainty also to possibilities, because
yeah.
suddenly there's so much that's possible that you did not think before because of the uncertainties that lie ahead.
Yeah, but we are different, and in an organizations where there are several hundred people, some have a fixed mindset, someone has open mindset. And as a CEO, you have to be very respectful for the different ways of acting, but you also
Mm.
have to decide who's going to be the leading voice.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
it's important that you listen to those who are healthy, critical.
Mhm.
But there's also people who are not critical in a healthy way. Um, you know, we don't talk about that, but there's a lot of shit in the Norwegian workplaces too. And
Mhm.
then to also recognize that in transformational processes, it can be dirty processes,
Absolutely.
and we shouldn't accept that,
Yeah.
and be quite vocal and say that this is not accepted.
Yeah.
I understand you would have it in a different way, but there would never be one way that would satisfy everyone. It's
Mm.
not possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that point about, people are different. So also being aware that, I might be okay with uncertainty, but there are a lot of people who might not be.
Yeah,
And then how do you create an environment where you can sort of guide them through that process of
yeah,
uncertainty? Because a lot of people, I've been working in the oil and gas industry, are really fearful about losing their jobs, and it's a real threat for them.
yeah.
And it's important to not ignore that when you're going through a transformation.
Absolutely. Um, and I think I think you can be quite honest and frank about that, and recognize that, you know, uh, this is going to meet some resistance in a way. Talk about the resistance,
Mhm.
talk
Mhm.
about all the different aspects. But then if that's in the way of making decisions, you're not going to get progress. And we have to remember that leadership is about producing results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what differentiates the different leaders, is more what kind of way do you believe in? What is your philosophy when it comes to making other people creating results?
Mm-hmm.
Some leaders think that sitting in an Excel sheet, giving commands is the way to do it, and other people don't. Uh, so you have to be quite selective when you are taking on a new job, reporting to a new boss. Try to figure out what kind of leadership philosophy does that leader has, and does
Mm-hmm.
it connect with me? Because if it doesn't connect with you, you'll be frustrated. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of that leads me to something you said earlier about, and I was thinking maybe we could spend some time also on, one of the things that you're very good at, Anita, is and that you work really hard towards is, being this role model for women and making sure that we increase the statistics that are out there about the number of women who are in leadership positions. People have this vision of the Nordics being a place where we have uh, reached a lot of our goals when it comes to egalitarianism, but there's a lot of places, especially in the workforce, where it's still business as usual.
Yeah.
And only 13% of the 200 companies in Norway have a female leader.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, of course, you've had your own challenges being that voice who's different. You've always spoken up, and sort of spoken up for having more different voices. But what are the sort of challenges you see, particularly in the Nordics, where we do have a good infrastructure for allowing women to enter the workforce, but a lot of them still happen to fall out of the system after sort of their mid leader roles that they take? What do you think happens in that journey?
So, so the Nordics and Norway has come a long way compared to many other countries, right? So it's right to say that, we have a very high percentage of women being part of the working life. We have different laws. We have maternity leaves. We have paternity leaves. We have kindergarten support. The equality has, by law, and also I would say in politics, with female prime ministers, female role models in different roles. That is true for politics and organization. But that is not true for the business industry. That is not true for where the private power is at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, in the 200 top Norwegian companies, there are still 86 or 87% men leading those companies. There are only 11% of the chairmen of the boards that are women. If you look at the entrepreneurial side, there's 7 out of 10 are men, only 3 are women. And when women are entrepreneurs, they don't build growth companies. They build a company or income for themselves and maybe one more. That is not scalable, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when a woman first build a scalable deep tech company, what we see in research is that they deliver better results than the men. But there are still very few women who does that. And this has also to do with deep cultural expectations of what a man and a woman does, the role that we have, the combination with family. So even though I've gone the way from trainee to CEO and I have 3 children, I've still felt the pressure of breaking out of expected roles for me, that I should do my motherhood like this and this. I should act like this and this as a leader. So there's this tiny room for leaders who are different, and still also based on gender, because it's been men who has been driven the role modeling of what a leader should be. I mean, just look at how we're dressed. I mean, I have a crazy color right now, but it's still a man's jacket, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I probably spent the first 20 years working in the ICT industry with a black suit, my hair back, not too much makeup, didn't want to make too much attention to looks. I only want to be measured by results. And it wasn't really many female CEOs I could look to. I could look to female politicians making their own way, but not that many in business and industry. So there is still in Norway, in one of the most equal, diverse countries in the world, we still have a way to go. Power is not balanced in Norway. Gender on the female side still represents a minority in Norway. When you're 11%, you are a minority. You know?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
So,
you know, you've gotten your share of sort of pushback of trying to do things differently, right? And I mean, one of the reasons why I am such a big fan of yours is that you completely embrace who you are and are not afraid to take the path that others have not taken, be creative, and speak out. And often I think that's also something that women kind of hold back on, because as a woman, when you do that, sometimes the repercussions are harsher, because already you're not fitting into the stereotype of what it is to be a leader or to be that voice, right? And then when you speak up and you get a lot of the pushback, how do you then, how do you deal with that and ensure that we're able to sort of build that resilience in the next generation of women who are coming through, because it's not going to go away.
no.
And so there's a shift in mindset that we need to do as a society, but in some ways also, how do we toughen ourselves up and kind of be prepared for that there will be pushback, but that doesn't make the work that we're doing any less valuable.
Yeah, so I think when you come up to a certain level, it's not about gender. It's about understanding the dynamics and the power games, right? And those can be played with integrity. That's my key message. It can be played with integrity. But you need to learn the game, right? So if you look at the history, at least in Norway, like my great grandmother, she couldn't even go to high school. Women in Norway was not allowed to go to take the exam artium until 1882. It's not that long ago. So going from not allowing women to educate at a higher level, for us now, where women are being overrepresented in a lot of university class and also delivering better results, and then to make women turn and make other choices in their career, because there's still a lot of women in Norway who choose to work for public sector and also choose to work, for example, in the health industries. So it takes time for generations to kind of get out of the expected roles that we've had for many, many years. And we're going, and I would say too slow, but in a way, the whole point now is to don't take that diversity and feminist for granted in Norway, because it's very fragile. It's only a few generations ago where we were not allowed as a gender to make decisions and to do the things that we do today. So when I explain this to my daughters, they are completely like, what do you mean I can't choose this and this? Because they take it for granted. And I think they should. But I also want them to remember the facts, because this is not about emotions and we feel like this and this. The numbers speaks for themselves. It's not balanced on the top of the Norwegian business and industries. It's not. And I think the best thing to, I mean, there's a lot of people the past 25 years that I've been working, that's been great mentors. You know, I've had mentors all my life, and they're so supportive, and also to to make a decision that the leadership role is not a lonely role. They say that it's lonely at the top. I think that's bullshit. That's a personal choice if you want it to be lonely. It can be quite social. It can be very interesting, because if you let other people give you advice and that you don't get so personal about criticism, I think that is key.
Yeah.
That you don't view criticism or people who has other opinions than you view it as valuable. But you make the decision when you want to change things based on criticism, or when you think that, well, this criticism is not very solid, the motivation for this, I don't agree. You don't have to agree on everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you have to be selective. And you have to, I think a lot of leaders, they don't want to be on the top role, because you get a lot of things written about you, a lot of criticism. And as long as you believe in things, as long as you can be honest, as long as you don't, you play with integrity, there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you're saying, when you take those leadership roles, it's part of the role that there's going to be criticism.
Yeah. Don't take it personal. It's part of the dramaturgy. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be written in the role description that you will get a lot of criticism. And it's, and you've spoken about this also in the book that you've written around sort of what we call flinke pike, like, as women, we're raised to be just pleasing and be these nice girls who everyone likes. And it's, I see it in me too, just sort of embedded in us, that I don't want anyone to think badly of me. But it's letting go of that, because especially when you rise to that level and you're influencing thousands, millions of people the way you are, Anita, there are going to be a handful of people who are not going to agree with you.
Which is okay.
Which is okay, because you're still making the change that you want to make in the world.
Absolutely. And you learn so much from other people's perspectives. And if you're in a position, and you have to watch that, because when you climb the ladder and you receive power, some people will not tell you exactly what they mean. So you have to go there proactively to ask for it, to make sure that you don't lose your sight of what's really important. Because power can also make people blind, right? So that's a key thing. You are not a superior person because you are a leader. Leadership is something that everyone can leverage on. You don't need a title to be a leader, like Henrik Ibsen, the Norwegian famous author, said, if you have, actually, he was probably one of the earliest talking about purpose. If you want something, people will follow you. You don't have to ask them to follow you, because they will believe in your project and they want to be part of your project. You don't need a title to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's even more important now that we're working in a hybrid and more global world, that the war for talent now is massive. And if you as a company don't open up for understanding the drivers, how people want to identify themselves in a different way than before, they want to form and work in a different way, well, you're going to lose the talents. And I'm not really worried, because if you don't have an eye for that, well, you're not going to survive. It's going to hit your numbers. At one point, it will hit your numbers. And if it hits your numbers, you're dead.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
the average lifespan of a company, it has dramatically reduced from approximately over 80 years. And they say it's going to be approximately 15 years in 2030. And this is based on an S&P index from the States, though. But I think this also goes for Europe. So the big, massive companies who used to have the power and they make the decisions for whatever change isn't change. The new innovators are the SMEs and the startups. It is not the big companies by themselves anymore. And if you don't, as an owner, get this transformation clearly, you're going to be out of business.
Wow, that's a powerful message to end this this podcast with you. Thank you so much, Anita. Wonderful lessons on not only how we are driving transformation, but also leadership. You gave us some really wise words also for rising women who want to take up leadership roles, that there will be criticism. We just need to let go of this armor, and that we have to be perfect all the time.
There is no thing as a perfect leadership. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No.
And you will make mistakes. You will be in situations that you weren't before, that other leaders weren't before.
But everybody talks about mistakes. Is it really mistakes? If you look at what you call it in research, it's learning. It's
learning.
key learning,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's completely necessary that we learn even more. And I've had too few escalation projects on my desk as a CEO. I wanted more because I wanted people to take risks and think out of the box.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that, because it's kind of, I've also reframed all failure as learning, because there's no such thing as failure. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's an infinite game.
Yeah.
It's not like things are ending now.
It's development. And I mean, if it's a failure, if you did something stupid, you should not try to repeat that, right? But doing something stupid is very different from a failure. There's so many people who wants to be responsible for things.
Yeah.
They also have to remember that they need to be accountable for things.
Yeah.
Responsibility and accountability, they go together.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much here. I would have liked to dig further with you. So we'll probably need to have you back here again to dig more into some of these topics. But thank you so much, Anita. And this recording we could not do live this time around, but please do leave your comments as I post this, and we will try to answer them. I'll send them over to Anita, and we'll try to get you some answers. So thank you again for watching, and thank you, Anita, for being with her